All right, this is the final part. So I guess it took 5 parts to cover all the Red Hot Chili Peppers under the bridge. So the first part I did the intro. The second part I did the verse chords. This is kind of logical spots to break it up. And then I did the chorus chords in part 3. Plus like a variation on the verse chords. And then part 4 I just did the final chords. And now I'm just going to put them all together. So some people, when they learn stuff on guitar, they really just want to be able to play along, and that's what kind of floats their boat. It's just to put on a track and be able to play along. Other people want to, like, if someone asks them to play something, they want to just be able to play it without playing along. And I mean, both are like a little bit different, because if you're playing along to the song, a lot of times you're a little more focused on pure accuracy. But it's kind of a little bit easier because you're playing along. It sparks your memory. I don't know. I just find it's like a different mode of doing things. So these lessons are more aimed towards if someone asked you to play under the bridge, especially if you hadn't played it for like 3 or 4 months, like how to think about it. So that's why I think about it in these 4 parts. And then you just can loop the parts however you want. So if someone asked me to play under the bridge, this is how I do it. If you want to make sure, if you don't feel comfortable with one of these parts, remember the intro was part 1, verse chords was part 2, chorus chords part 3, and then part 4 was the very ending. So if someone asked me to play it, this is what I would do. I would go. If I was brave, I would sing it. So notice I only did the verse once. Because playing it twice is kind of boring, unless you're playing along with the album. Chorus one more time, I'm just going to go straight to the ending. So that's how I would play it. If someone asked me if I was going to sing it and play it, I would repeat the parts and actually make sure I like looped. I played the verse more times, but like one of the most boring things is when you ask somebody to play a song and they aren't singing it and they play like the verse like 12 times because that's what they do in the original song. I mean, the person playing it might think it sounds cool, but when you're listening, it's pretty boring unless they're really good and they can add fills and stuff. So I find like when people ask me to play stuff, I'll just keep it to the minimal parts. Like there, doing the verse twice was necessary because if you just kind of flew through the song and didn't do it again, I wouldn't have been able to get that variation in there, which I wanted to get after the chorus. So I don't know. I mean, everyone has their own um, ways that they'll perform stuff. But whenever I'm asked to do a song, I'll just do it the amount of times that I think is sort of fits what they're asking for. Because most people don't want to hear me play the same parts for 5 or 6 minutes. And without drums and without all the background textures and the vocals, it doesn't sound all that great. But whenever I do sing songs, or I used to do some open mic nights, and or I write songs sometimes, you definitely loop stuff a lot because having the lyrics definitely carries the interest. So I'm curious how other people perform it. If anyone has a different opinion, and like I said, some people really like to um, get like what's it called, Guitar Pro. Some people's style of learning, they like to go through Guitar Pro and like play through the song so that they can play it for 6 or 7 minutes all the way through. I personally always got too bored to do that. That's just my personality. So I would just see like what are the main parts and then focus on them and learn them. So it's just kind of like a learning style thing. And also I know I tend to just want to know what are the main parts because I think what happened when I first started guitar, I would do what a lot of people do, and like I would learn the song all the way through and have like set lists because I wanted to perform set lists for people and at some cafes and stuff. And then I started to realize the longer I played, after like 2 years, like you just forget stuff. So it's almost better just to break it into like, all right, in 2 years from now, what am I going to remember? And if you really just focus on like a few parts, you master those parts. Um, like if you think of Red Hot Chili Peppers as there's 4 parts, and then you just remember sort of the chords for that, then 2 years later, if someone asks you, it'll probably come back to you. Whereas if you're thinking about it like almost on a more detailed level, trying to remember everything, and you didn't sort of abstract it into the chord progressions and like verse, intro, verse, bridge, chorus and ending, it's a lot harder to remember it. So like with classical music, it's hard. A lot of classical music, I used to have full songs memorized, but because it's harder to chunk it in terms of the chords, because there's so much more detail, you can almost not figure out what the chords are, and it's super hard. Like after a month, you forget the song unless you have kept practicing it, or if you practiced it for like a certain number of months and it's pure muscle memory, then you might remember it. But intellectually, it's just hard to remember. So, anyways, hope that helped. And if anyone has any requests for other songs or they want some depth on this one, then let me know. All right, bye.